Okay, let's take a look at number 17, where it says, what is the inverse of this function? Asking to find an inverse is really asking it to put it in terms of the other variable. So let's write that down. So we're going to put in terms of the other variable. Other variable, what do you mean by that? Well, considering that this is really y, we're going to solve it for x instead, because right now everything is equal to y, but we want it to be in terms of y with x by itself. Let me clarify a little bit. First of all, let's just write it again one more time. We'll switch colors here, and we're going to write it y equals log base 5 of 2x minus 1 in parentheses. Now, the purpose of that was just to have it nice and neat sitting there, and f of x turned into y because that's what it really is. But since we have to put it in terms of that variable instead, we're going to solve for x. Now, I went through this when I taught the lesson, but basically, for the purposes of graphing, if we were to graph this, then we would need to switch these two variables, and that might affect the domain and the range and things later, but for now, let's just do this. There we go. We are going to solve for y. That's what we do. So, switch x and y, when you're finding an inverse, switch x and y, and then you solve for y. And again, that might affect your domain, your range, different little things, but we're not going to go there right now. In the meantime, let's just solve. If we were going to get this thing to where y was by itself and we were going to rearrange it, then our first thought might be to add 1, but we can't break him out of the parentheses. What we really need to do is rearrange this stuff, and when I write this next step, I do this all the time, but it's a little bit unnecessary, but it does help us visualize what really needs to happen. And then when we do that, we can say, well, 5 to the x equals all that stuff. And that's going to help us break that stuff out of the parentheses. So 5 to the x equals 2y minus 1. Already we've ruled out these two because those have logs in them, and our final answer will not. Now we're continuing to solve for y, so if we add 1 to both sides, 5 to the x plus 1 equals 2y, and we will divide. So y equals 5 to the x plus 1, all divided by 2. Now, when they wrote their answer, they wrote it using inverse notation. So instead of y, because this is the inverse, we will say that f inverse equals 5 to the x plus 1, all divided by 2. The answer is B.